My name is Kellie-Jay Keen-Minshull, but I go by the online name of Posie Parker. I've been Posie Parker online for about 12 years, and I am an adult human female. And these days, woman is something that seems to be co-opted for men to exercise their fetish and their perversion in public, and we all have to play along. So, back in 2015, in the United Kingdom, we elected David Cameron as our Prime Minister, and this was following a Liberal Democrat Conservative government, and nobody thought it was going to happen, and lots of women, including myself on the left, were quite aghast that we had a Conservative government. And so we joined this big online forum called Awesome Lefty Women. It might be amazing, I can't remember. And it was about 200 people when I joined, and it quickly grew to about 20,000 women. And it was very exciting, and we talked about what we were going to do, whether or not we'd try and become councillors, how we would make sure that the Conservative government wouldn't cripple our NHS, decimate our school system, ruin our public services. And there was a real feeling of desperation amongst women in this group. And it was lovely, and we talked about politics. And then something very strange happened. And these women talking about politics and not even talking about our families very much were joined by people who identified as women. And they looked a little more like this. And their discussions were more about their soft-focus portraits and how beautiful they were. And what was more alarming than these men coming into women's groups and demanding that we treated them as women and didn't talk about politics at all, but talked about themselves, their underwear, their tights, their stockings. This person is called Nina Greenwood. He is a Tate artist, so he gets to put his artwork in the Tate. And at the time, he was still going by the name of David. And he came in the group and he said some joke about radical feminists and being tied to a radiator after a beating. And that was like a funny joke that women were supposed to find hilarious. And so I just made this really polite inquiry to Nina. And I said, "Are you sure you identify as a woman?" And what Nina heard, and what most of the group heard, is, "How quickly can I kill your entire family?" Because the vitriol and the hatred and the attack I received on the basis of saying, "Are you sure you identify as a woman?" was something I've had it a lot now, but up until that point, I'd never known anything like it. I was hateful. I wanted his suicide. I was disgusting. I was a TERF, which is a trans-exclusionary radical feminist. And I don't know how close you are, but I wear a little bit too much makeup to be called a radical feminist in any stretch of the definition. And so it was a real baptism of fire in what was at stake for women and who decided who could be women and what a woman was. And for Nina, clearly, it was this. That's his first outing as Nina, how affirming. So the words TERF and also the word cis. So now women, we can't just be women. You can't just be men. You have to be cis, which means, and I'm going to talk in language that doesn't even make sense in English, so you're forgiven for being Norwegian and not understanding it at all. So cis will be a preface to the word woman or man on the basis of you being assigned at birth. So I've had 4 babies, and every time somebody looked at their genitals and their outward sex characteristics and said that they were either boys or girls. And nobody assigned them anything at that point. Their sex was recorded. So now we have to be cis or TERF. And then this is a really beautiful example of the transgender umbrella. So when I first heard of trans women, it is incredible. Eunuch is on there, which is a new one on me. So when I first heard of transgender and trans woman, I assumed it was post-operative males predominantly. I didn't really know there were too many post-operative females, post-operative males, and they would be called trans women. But now, literally, you can just wear a dress one afternoon a week, gentlemen, and you can be called trans women. And now we'll go swiftly on to a hero of mine, and I say that very sarcastically, called Susie Green. She is the CEO of Mermaids Gender. She's just made the news recently because some gamer who has some questionable contacts raised money for Mermaids Gender. So Mermaids Gender is an organisation. They call themselves a charity. They're actually a lobby group. And what they do is they lobby government to try and change the law on how we treat transgender children. Now, I didn't understand the presentation before, but I hope I know what was in it. As far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing as a transgender child. The whole concept of the fact that you are born in the wrong body is absolute nonsense. You have to take some incredible mental gymnastics to think that that concept is feasible, that actually what you're born into is not your body. And when you challenge people on this and say, well, which bit is born in the wrong body? Is it your brain, your blood, your hands, your soul? Nobody can answer what it is that is born in the wrong body. It's a feeling. So Susie Green of Mermaids Gender doesn't like being criticised very much. So when she took her 16-year-old son to Thailand for his 16th birthday to have his penis sliced and inverted and his testicles removed on his 16th birthday, I said it was disgusting. I said it was castration. And she decided to report me to the British police for my 6 tweets, and I got interviewed under caution for 40 minutes. Now, we have a very strapped, cash-strapped police service. They cannot come if you're being burgled. If there's people in your house stealing your stuff, they don't have enough manpower to come. Yet 2 police from the north of England came down to see me in the south of England, and they spent a night in a hotel in order to question me under caution. At one point, the hate crime officer said to me, but sex reassignment surgery doesn't include castration. So I think he thinks that you can have both a vagina and testicles. So the trouble is with the whole narrative around this. So this is a brave and stunning story in our press. Susie Green is a brave and stunning mother who has done more for her children than any of us would. And this poor boy, when he was about 7 years old, because he did like playing with girly things, he probably was very effeminate, his father came home and threw all of his toys away. So if that isn't something that would traumatize a child to think that they are born in the wrong body, I don't really know what is. So she says here, when she was such a girly boy, I mean, just even having to say those words in a row is insane. When she was such a girly boy from such an early age, I even started hoping that she might grow out of it. It might turn out that I had a gay son. I think I must have been one of the few parents who was actually praying I had a gay son. And what Susie Green has done with this is she's coined the phrase, I'd rather have a live daughter than a dead son. So she's pushing the narrative of the suicide. And the suicide statistics are nonsense. They don't exist. They are untrue. So our gender identity clinic is called Tavistock. They will tell you that I think 1 child on a gender identity pathway has committed suicide in the UK in the last few years. So the suicide statistics are wrong. Suicide ideation is evil, and it's something that this organisation pushes. So these are the crimes that I was going to be accused with. This is what went to the Crown Prosecution Service. This is the list of crime for 6 tweets. Malicious communications, harassment, public order, nuisance, conspiracy, and hate speech. And then this is not a parody. This is true. This is what they take into schools. And this is what they tell children to look at to decide where they are on the gender spectrum. So you start with a Barbie. I think I'm I'm probably sort of a light Barbie, and in looks only. And then you move right along to G.I. Joe. And if you're a girl and you don't want to play with Barbie, and these days if you don't want to be a porn star, then you might think that you're trans, or at least non-binary, have a dip into not fitting into gender stereotypes. And for boys, if you want to play with dolls, if you don't like rough and tumble, then maybe you're a girl. And this is what we're doing to convince our youth.
Trans Camp is a social innovation camp that we're running with the trans community. So, and by trans, we mean transgender or transsexual. And we're looking at ways that we can improve how the media portrays and treats trans people.
So the BBC and Channel 4 are absolutely instrumental in the grooming of the entire nation into transitioning children. Now, I have a theory that the transitioning of children serves the purpose of autogynephiliac men, so that they can operate amongst us, and we can't say that they're just raging perverts and exercising a fetish, because so many kids are going to be doing it. So then we've got the social media platforms. They are absolutely scandalous in the way that they are promoting this agenda amongst children. Girls that don't fit in, and as you heard in the last presentation, I'm sure it's majority girls that are falling for this cult. Girls that don't fit in on these places are given somewhere to be and to be accepted. And what's happening to them here, if you see this girl is called Sam Collins. They've got 324,000 subscribers. They tell you a really beautiful, happy journey of breast binding, of surgeries, and just how life-affirming and fitting into this trans cult, how great it is. And then this is Jazz Jennings. Jazz is like the poster boy in the United States for this movement. That little sign there, the blue and yellow, is the Human Rights Campaign. They are funding this, they are promoting this, they are pushing this. Jazz, unfortunately, is a victim of his mother's Munchausen by proxy. She's been selling his story and making herself famous since he was really little. Now, at 17 years old, when Jazz had a penis the size of a 9-year-old because he's been on puberty blockers for so long, he had sex reassignment surgery. He had complications. I implore you to look it up. The pain on that child's face is disgusting. You cannot look at it and think that it's anything other than absolute abuse. So Jazz is now, I think there's a day in America coming soon where all schools are going to jointly read this story. So I'll just let you see a little bit of Jazz. So he's now had a vagina made out of part of his stomach.
Of my book, I Am Jazz. I am Jazz. For as long as I can remember, my favorite color has been pink. My second favorite color is silver, and my third favorite color is green. Here are some of my other favorite things: dancing, singing, backflips, drawing, soccer, swimming, makeup, and pretending I'm a pop star. Most of all, I love mermaids. Sometimes I even wear a mermaid tail in the pool.
So he's being used as a sort of a powerful story of affirmation. And he's very famous. And lots of people share his story all the time. And now that book is going to go into schools. You may even find it in schools in this country, certainly in the UK, and definitely right across America. And then we have Desmond, the amazing Desmond. He's an 11-year-old drag queen. So Desmond, right now, he has a billboard in Times Square where he is wearing a basque with fake breasts molded into the basque. And he's like a massive media star. I think he's got a show on Netflix or something. It's mainstreaming paedophilia.
It's 2018. There's going to be drag kids in the world. And I'm one of them.
mean, just the angles, just the music, the slow-mo, the way he leans into the camera. These are not kids. These are not being treated like children. These are part of the mass grooming. Here's another one. He's called Lactatia.
As Lactatia, I lip sync and I dance and I vogue and I spin around in my poofy dresses. I just be nice and gracious to everyone.
So Desmond, who we saw first, has recently done a night in a drag club where grown men were throwing money at him. I mean, these are difficult themes to ignore. It's you have to be blind not to see the connections, as far as I'm concerned. And then this is CBBC, Children's BBC. This is a bit long, so I do apologise.
Hi, I'm Leo, and I want to do this documentary to show that my life isn't that different to yours. I live with my sister Daisy.
He sometimes can be a good brother, but sometimes he can be annoying.
And with my mum.
He's great fun to do anything with. He's also quite temperamental.
What?
He's just like any other teenager, really.
But there's something about me that means I haven't always been accepted as Leo. In most ways, I'm like an average 13-year-old boy, apart from I was born in a girl's body. Although people saw me as a girl, I always knew I was really a boy.
This isn't actually me. It feels like it's just a different person.
Lots of people don't understand and think I'm too young to know who I really am. I just want people to finally see me the way I see myself, as Leo.
To be accepted is like the best feeling in the world.
This is how I live my life as a boy. Our bodies begin to alter when we grow up because hormones in our bodies start working really hard.
Look at the colour of the brain.
Male hormones turn boys
bit.
into men, and female hormones turn girls into women. But if you're transgender like me, it's horrible.
This is a
because our bodies
children's
start changing
mainstream
the opposite way to how
programme.
we feel.
I'd be really, really sad because I would be trapped in the body that I don't want to be in.
My doctors understand what I'm going through, so we all decided I should be given a monthly injection to stop my body changing into a woman's. The injection is called a hormone blocker, and if you stop taking it, your hormones start working again,
Which
just
is not
like
true.
before. Dr. Polly knows all about it.
The blocker is an injection that someone has every month which pauses the body and stops it from carrying on to grow up into a man or a woman. And the idea of the blocker is that if we can take away that worry about your body doing something that you don't want it to, then it gives you and us more time and space to be really thinking about what's going to be best for you now, but also in the future. And the good thing about it is that if you stop the injections, it's like pressing a start button, and the body just carries on developing as it would if you hadn't have taken the injection.
I'm going to say I don't quite know how Polly Carmichael can say that and how the BBC can put that out. That is an absolute unknown. There is no information whatsoever to say children on puberty blockers, for the amount of time that these kids are on puberty blockers, it's reversible. There is no data. It doesn't exist. I mean, it might be true. It's very unlikely. I think that we don't know enough about what the brain and the body and puberty and everything, how it works together. I have faith in evolution, that it's for a decent purpose. So how she can say that it's reversible, I have no idea, but that is not true. She cannot say that as a true fact because it's untested. And that's a kids' programme. So I'm sorry that's quite shocking, but that is a double mastectomy on healthy breasts of a 15-year-old. In America, at 15, without your parents' consent, you can go and have a double mastectomy in the state of Oregon. Without your parents' consent. And what they're trying to do across America and in the UK is they're trying to allow schools and the state to go along with your decisions about your bodily autonomy as children without your parents' consent or even knowledge. So we've got, in the UK, you can go on a guides camp now, so Girl Guides. You can go on a guides camp and they don't need to tell you that the person staying in your daughter's camp has got a penis or is a man. You know, he might call himself Janet, but he doesn't need a GRC. He doesn't need any recognition in law. He can just go along, say he's a woman, and he will be treated as one, and you don't need to know anything about it. And then we've got our police, who are great. I'm not a lesbian. I'm not part of the LGBT community, but I just hope that if I call the police, they just come and investigate a crime. I don't really need to know that they celebrate Pride. I don't know when we started having this thing that police need to be a little more than upholders of the law, but I don't need to know what football team they support. I don't need to know anything about my police. I just need to know they've got enough funding to fight crime when I need it and not police people's words. So I got really, really, I can't believe this is happening, and every time I got to a point where I thought, well, that won't happen, you know, that's really bad, but that won't happen. They won't do it to kids, and then they're doing it to kids. And I'm thinking, well, they won't do it surgically to kids. They won't try and lower that. And then Stonewall, which is a large organisation, LGBT in the UK, and Mermaids, they want to lower the age of consent to capacity as opposed to age. So if at 12 years old they decide that you're compos mentis enough to know that you don't want to be whatever sex it is you are, they want to push ahead with surgeries and interventions at that point. So the thing I decided was that the word woman was the thing that we needed to protect, because if you can't have that word, then no rights that come from that word and use that word, none of those rights will mean anything. You know, you can fight for a domestic violence shelter for women, but if a woman is anyone who says they're a woman, then what's the point? They don't exist. So this is something we did in Washington, D.C. to fight the fact that Twitter is banning women left, right, and centre for saying women don't have penises. I'm one of them. I can never, ever go on Twitter again. In fact, they've recently just banned my husband, who literally just posts about Chelsea Football Club. And they've banned him because they've researched into our IP address, so now nobody... And I've got 4 kids. Nobody from my IP address can go onto Twitter because I'm clearly such a dangerous individual. So this is what I did in Liverpool. I did this billboard, and I knew what was going to happen when I put it up. I knew that a lot of men would have tantrums. So I apologise, men in this room. But I knew a lot of these men would have tantrums that how dare I put something so offensive on a wall, and they did. And I was quite happy for them to make such a fuss, and it got me publicity, and I sold more T-shirts, and then I can do more work. However, what I didn't know is that PrimeSite, which is one of the largest outdoor media companies in the world, would take it down. And they didn't just take it down, they made this statement. I mean, they said at one point that my copy, which is the dictionary definition of woman, what my copy should have done is it should have raised a red flag in their copy department because it was so terribly offensive. So the dictionary definition of woman is now considered hate speech. And I promise, when they sent me this and they told me, I was I genuinely felt sick, because I quite like the drama and pushing the boundaries and bringing out the conversation, because I think people like you guys in this room and, you know, regular people need to understand what is at stake and what is going on. Is that all? I've talked so long, sorry. So anyway, but it did make me feel quite sick that actually even businesses in the business of making money were going to join in. So then I projected this onto the BBC in London. This is their BBC head office. And then this is the National Portrait Gallery just off Trafalgar Square. And then my personal favourite, which is the Royal Opera House in London. because if they won't let me have a damn billboard, then I'll have to do something else. I'm not allowed to do any more billboards. I'm not allowed to put woman, adult, human, female on the side of buses. It's, if it wasn't quite so frightening, it'd be hilarious. So this is my latest action that's caused widespread condemnation, including in feminist circles. I'll just tell you a little bit about this. This person you're going to see is called Sarah McBride. He was Tim McBride in 2011. He is in the business of making sure the American government put gender identity as a protected characteristic in their Equality Act. This will basically make sex-based rights dead in the water. They won't mean anything because gender identity will become something much more important, and anybody who says they're a woman will be more important than people that are women. So I went to the Senate and Congress, and I had meetings with staffers, and then I happened to see this delightful human who'd just given a meeting with Representative Joe Kennedy. So this person is a powerful person. I decided to tackle him and ask him some questions. And I will tell you, even Chelsea Clinton thought I was a terrible human for doing this. And lots of women on the left who purport to be feminists in the United Kingdom said it was appalling, aggressive, violent. I was a liability, an embarrassment to feminism. So now that you're primed and ready, please be warned, it is very, very shocking and scary. We're just going to talk to Sarah McBride. Excuse me, are you prepared to listen to the concerns of women about the Equality Act and about why you're okay? Yeah, so am I. I want to know why this person is advocating to remove the safety for women and girls. Why do you want to do that?
Why are you championing the rights of men to access women in women's prisons and rape and sexually assault them, as has recently happened in the United Kingdom?
Why don't you care about lesbian girls at 14 having double mastectomies? Why don't you care about that, Sarah? This is Sarah McBride. He gets paid probably quite a lot of money to lobby the government to try and make sure that women and girls have absolutely no right to any space anymore. Shame on you.
Sarah, yesterday I listened to mothers weeping over the fact that their daughters, teenage daughters, had had their breasts sliced off and radical hysterectomies involving removing their womb and ovaries. And
he doesn't care, look.
Would you like to speak to those mothers and tell us why you're championing an Equality Act that will ensure that a lot more of this happens to young lesbians, Sarah?
Tell the entire LGBT community how much you hate lesbians, Sarah.
Well, I don't know that Sarah does have that. I think Sarah just did that already in the interview outside. We hear you very clearly, Sarah. We hear your hatred of lesbians very clearly.
Right, so that was clearly a gross act of violence. So now what we're facing across your country, my country, throughout Europe and America and Australia, it's the same method. It's the same way that they're co-opting and corrupting children. I have no idea to what end. I can't imagine, after watching stuff yesterday, that it isn't something deeply, deeply sinister. Thank you very much.